Everyone thinks being a paid DM is the dream. Get paid to do what you love, right? Well, I ran 5 Pathfinder 2e sessions per week for over a year, earned 5-star reviews on Start Playing while working as a full-time college professor. But nobody talks about what it actually costs you, the parts that don't show up in your reviews. So I'm breaking down the 3 hard truths that made me quit, plus 2 things I genuinely miss. We'll cover the hidden workload that burns you out, the mental and emotional toll you can't escape, and what it actually takes to sustain this long term. By the end, you'll know if paid DMing is really for you or if you're better off keeping it as a passion project. So let's start with what seems like the easy part: running the same system repeatedly. The reality looked manageable when I started. 5 sessions per week, 3 hours each, all Pathfinder 2e. That's about 15 hours of game time, which doesn't actually sound that bad. Each group was on a different adventure path. I had 5 physical books sitting on my desk, 5 different campaigns, 5 different levels, 5 different party compositions, 5 completely different story arcs. But here's what nobody tells you about that setup. The cognitive load doesn't come from running the system. It comes from tracking 5 different campaigns at the same time. 5 different NPC relationships, 5 different plot threads, 5 groups of players who all expect you to remember their specific story. When you're running the same system 15 hours every week, you start seeing all the cracks you used to ignore. In month 6, I made a mistake that woke me up. I called an NPC by the wrong name in a session. Then I referenced a plot point that hadn't happened yet in that campaign. It had happened in a different group's game. The players noticed immediately. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't mastering the system anymore. I was drowning in it. So I started making detailed notes just to track which group was which. Color-coded spreadsheets, campaign timelines, NPC relationship maps for each party, all of this in Obsidian and on paper. But by then the damage was done. I couldn't look at Pathfinder without feeling exhausted. The progression happens slowly, and you don't notice it until it's too late. Months 1 through 3, you're in love with the system. You're excited to run every session. Months 4 through 6, you're an expert, but you're getting tired. The shine's wearing off. Month 7 and beyond, you resent the game that used to excite you. And after 8 months, I couldn't open another Pathfinder 2e book without feeling drained. Chase mechanics that sounded cool the first time broke down after running them 20 plus times and seeing every exploit. Lockpicking rules, I could recite them in my sleep. Artifact weapon rules, I knew exactly where they'd fail before the players even tried them. That means the hobby that brought you joy becomes just another job you hate. So, if you're going to run paid games, you need to decide right now. Either rotate systems, even if it means fewer bookings and less income, or accept that you might completely burn out on your favorite system. And here's what made it worse. While I was buried in Pathfinder, all these other systems I wanted to try just sat on my shelf collecting dust. Cypher system, Call of Cthulhu, Blades in the Dark. Systems I was genuinely excited about, but I had no time and no mental energy left to learn them. Which is why you might miss out on the game that would actually reignite your passion for DMing. This is exactly the kind of thing I wish someone had told me before I started. I break down these hidden costs in my weekly newsletter, where I'm way more candid than I can be on YouTube. Links in the description. Now, while I was buried in system fatigue, all those crossed off games on my shelf, that wasn't even the hardest part. Because the real challenge isn't the system. It's what happens to you mentally. System fatigue is brutal, but the real challenge? You have to perform like everything's perfect even when it's not. When people pay you, they expect entertainment every single session. You can't have off days. You can't have exhaustion. You can't let the cracks show. 0 sick days. 0 I'm not feeling it today days. 0 room for being human. And here's what makes that impossible. You're serving the the min-maxer who's rolling perfect optimized builds, and the actor doing character voices and emotional role play in the same 3-hour session every week, multiple times per week. The self-doubt starts to spiral immediately. Am I doing enough? Are they getting their money's worth? Was that encounter too easy? Did I give that NPC enough personality? Should I have prepared more content? One week, I got sick. Hoarse voice, fever, could barely think straight. I had 5 sessions scheduled that week. I couldn't cancel all of them without losing some of the income that I had started to count on. So I drank tea, popped throat lozenges, and performed 9 hours that week while sick. I gave terrible sessions. I knew it while I was doing it, and I spent the entire week terrified of bad reviews, instead of just resting and recovering like a normal person. One player sent me a message afterwards. "Hey, you seem off. You okay?" That's when I realized I was so focused on being on that I'd become a worse DM by refusing to be human. But the worst moment was the one that I never got closure on. So a player quit mid-game, no explanation. Just left. Left the session, never came back, no message, no feedback. I even reached out, nothing. I never found out why. Was it something I said? Did I mess up the encounter balance? Was I not entertaining enough? Did I forget an important plot point from their backstory? That self-doubt haunted me for months. That means you become irritable and short-tempered and emotionally unavailable. Your relationships suffer because you've got nothing left to give. You need decompression time after sessions, even if it means scheduling fewer games per week and making less money. You have to build in emotional recovery time or you're gonna burn out. There's no way around it. Look at these reviews. 5 stars on Start Playing. Players called me inclusive, fantastic. Terry brings life to his games with his exceptional role-playing. They had no idea that right after the sessions, I'd close Discord and just kind of stare at the wall for 20 minutes because I had nothing left. So, you're delivering great performances while slowly destroying yourself, and nobody knows. If you've ever had a player ghost mid-campaign, you know that gut punch feeling. Hit the like button if this is hitting home. And that emotional toll during sessions is just part of it. The real work actually happens when nobody's watching. Being on all the time drains you, but that's just the 15 hours you're in session. Let me show you what happens to your life outside those games. 15 hours of sessions per week. That's what people see. That's where I am on camera in front of my players. That's what they think paid DMing is. What they don't see is all the prep work. 1 hour of reading per adventure path times 5 different paths. That's 5+ hours every single week, just reading ahead so you know what's coming. Plus note-taking for each campaign, NPC prep so you remember who's who, encounter building so combat doesn't fall apart, and working on your virtual tabletop. That's another 5 to 10 hours depending on the week. Here's the math. 15 hours of session plus 5 to 10 hours of prep equals 20 to 25 hours per week total. And that's on top of my full-time job as a college professor. You're looking at 60, 65-hour work weeks, easy. That means you're working a second full-time job, except this one eats your evenings, weekends, and any time you thought you'd have for yourself or for your family. My partner asked me to watch a movie one night. Something we do. I said I can't. I have to prep for Tuesday's session. She looked at me, said that every night this week. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't making extra money. I was trading my life for it. The cruel irony is you're making extra income, but you have no real time to enjoy it. No time for family, no time for friends, 0 hours for just playing games recreationally and having fun with the hobby. So the extra income comes at the cost of the relationships and the hobbies that make life worth living. Before paid DMing, movie nights with my partner, hanging out with friends, playing games just for fun because I loved them. During paid DMing, every evening consumed by prep or hosting a game, every weekend booked with sessions, no time for things that actually mattered. You calculate your actual hourly rate, including prep time, before you commit to this. You might be making less than minimum wage when you factor in all the invisible work. Find ways to protect personal time or accept that your life becomes this, just work and prep, nothing else. Life kept moving around me. Friends got together, holidays came and went, but I was kind of stuck in this loop, always reading ahead, always prepping, always one chapter ahead, but never actually catching up. Look, if you're serious about paid DMing, which is wonderful, you just need to go into it with your eyes open. Now, you know what it costs. Your time, your energy, your love for the game. And some people in the TTRPG community are going to judge you for it anyway. The stigma is real. Paid DMs are ruining the hobby. You're selling out. Real DMs do it for love, not money. These criticisms come from a genuine place. People worry about commercialization changing the hobby they love. I fully understand that. But here's what that criticism misses. The assumption that charging for DMing means you care less about the hobby. Look, someone in a Facebook group told me I was everything wrong with modern TTRPGs because I charged for sessions. A week later, that same person posted asking for DM advice, and I helped them anyway. Because regardless of how they felt about paid DMing, we both loved the same hobby. That paid DM income, it let me buy over 100 different TTRPG systems. Look at this bookshelf. Iron Sworn, Call of Cthulhu, Land of Eam, Cairn, Monster of the Week, Dungeon World, Kids on Bikes, Morkborg, 13th Age, Coriolis, and I can go on and on. The money didn't make me less passionate. It funded my ability to explore the hobby deeper than I ever could have otherwise. That means you can't celebrate your success in most online spaces without backlash from people who don't understand what you're actually doing. So the judgment comes from people who often haven't done what you're doing or invested what you've invested, and I invested a lot. The irony of being called a sellout while literally investing more in the hobby than the people making that accusation, it's not lost on me. Develop thick-skinned or find communities that support paid DMs, like the Start Playing forums and Discord. I'm not here to debate the ethics of charging for games. I'm here to show you the reality. These 3 hard truths exist regardless of how you feel about paid DMing. The question isn't whether it's ethical. It's whether the trade-off is worth it for you. So after everything I've told you about system fatigue, emotional exhaustion, invisible work, and community judgment, you might wonder why anyone does this. Well, there were actually some things I genuinely loved. I told you everything that sucks about paid DMing, but there were genuinely 2 things I loved that I still miss to this very day. First thing, system mastery. I could pick up a game of Pathfinder 2e today and just roll with it. No prep, no rules lookup, no hesitation. I know what works. I know what encounters will challenge a 7th level party. I know which rules to skip because they slow the game down. I'm looking at you, victory points and crafting systems. Detailed chase mechanics that break immersion? No good. That deep knowledge is valuable. It makes you a better DM overall. Even for other systems. you start recognizing patterns across games. That means you develop skills that transfer to any game you run, even after you stop paid DMing. That expertise doesn't go away. But here's the biggest thing I miss. The thing that made all of the rest of it almost worth it. The consistency. One of my paid groups ran for 7 months straight. That's 28 sessions without a single cancellation. They showed up every week. They came prepared. They brought energy. They actually read their session recaps. They remembered NPC names and plot threads. On the other hand, my home game with friends canceled 3 times in 2 months because life got busy or something came up. And don't get me wrong, I understand that. I've had to do that. Both groups were great people. I loved playing with both, but only one was consistently reliable. When people pay, they value their time. They show up because they've invested money in that slot. Look at the numbers. My paid games had about a 5% cancellation rate across all groups over the entire year. My home game, 30 to 40% cancellation rate, which is really pretty typical from what I hear from other DMs. So you can actually run long-form campaigns without constant schedule juggling. That's worth something real. Paid players showed up because they valued their slot. The cancellation monster that plagues every home game, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, defeated. No more, sorry, something came up an hour before game time. No more scrambling to reschedule around 5 different people's calendars. And here's the other part. These players knew the rules. They came prepared. High-level play with knowledgeable players meant pure storytelling. Less time looking up basic mechanics, more time on what actually matters. If consistency is your biggest pain point in home games, paid DMing solves that problem completely. Players who pay bring energy. They know the system and focus on the story you're telling together. And if you want more honest DM content like this, I'm going to ask you, subscribe so you don't miss it. So that's the full picture. The system fatigue that kills your love for the game, the emotional toll of always performing, the invisible prep work that eats your life, the community judgment, and yes, the system mastery and reliable players that made it worthwhile. Now, you can decide what's right for you.